There's a moment, sharp as lightning, when the mask falls, and you see them for what they are. The air shifts. Something electric passes between you. In that instant, they know you know. The game they've been playing, the careful construction of lies and half-truths, the emotional puppet strings they've been pulling, all of it becomes visible, and in their eyes you see the flicker of recognition. Their cover is blown. But here's what catches most people off guard. This isn't the end of the manipulation. It's the beginning of something far more dangerous. When a manipulator realizes you see through them, they don't retreat gracefully into the shadows. They don't apologize and change their ways. Instead, they escalate. They adapt. They deploy a playbook of tactics designed to regain control, to make you doubt what you clearly saw, to pull you back into their web of confusion and emotional chaos. Today, I'll show you the 6 things manipulators do when exposed, and how to respond with stoic clarity. Because the moment you see the mask fall isn't when you celebrate. It's when you prepare for the real battle. The fight for your own mind, your own peace, your own unshakable center. Tactic 1. They flip the narrative. When cornered, a manipulator's first instinct isn't to admit fault, it's to make you the problem. Picture this. You've finally called them out. You've named their behavior, pointed to the pattern, refused to accept their latest excuse. For a split second, you see the truth in their eyes. They know they've been caught. But instead of owning it, they pivot with surgical precision. You're being paranoid. You're too sensitive. You're the one causing drama. I was trying to help you, and this is how you repay me. Suddenly, the conversation isn't about their manipulation anymore. It's about your reaction to it. They've flipped the script so smoothly that you find yourself defending your right to feel hurt, explaining why their behavior was wrong, proving that you're not crazy or oversensitive or ungrateful. This is the trap. The moment you start defending your reality to someone who lives in deliberate delusion, you've already lost. You're playing their game on their terms, and their terms are designed to exhaust you. Here's what happens in your mind. Doubt creeps in. Maybe you are being too harsh. Maybe you did misinterpret their intentions. Maybe you're the problem after all. That gnawing uncertainty, that's exactly what they're counting on. But the Stoic response cuts through this fog like a sword through silk. Stop proving. Start living the truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The manipulator wants you to think their version of reality matters more than your own direct experience. They want you to value their opinion of you more than your knowledge of yourself. You don't need to defend what's real, you just need to live it. When they flip the narrative, you don't flip it back. You don't engage in the tennis match of accusations and counter-accusations. You simply say, "I see this differently," and you walk away, not in anger, not in hurt, but in clarity. Your integrity doesn't require their approval. Your truth doesn't need their validation. Your peace doesn't depend on winning an argument with someone who's playing by completely different rules. Therefore, when they try to make you the villain in their story, you remember, you're not a character in their drama. You're the author of your own life. Tactic 2. They pretend nothing happened. When the direct confrontation fails, many manipulators try a different approach. They act like nothing ever happened. Days pass, maybe weeks. Then your phone buzzes with a text that makes your stomach drop. "Hey, how are you? Miss you." Or they show up in your comments, liking your photos, responding to your stories, as if you're still the best of friends. They reach out with casual invitations, inside jokes, shared memories, anything to re-establish the connection they know you're trying to sever. This tactic is particularly insidious because it exploits your natural human desire to be reasonable, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to not be the difficult one. They're counting on your discomfort with conflict, your tendency to question whether the incident was really that serious after all. The emotional hook here is subtle but powerful. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe it wasn't that big a deal. Maybe you should just let it go and go back to normal. But here's what they're really doing. They're trying to reset the relationship to their terms. They want to skip past accountability and jump straight back to access. They want to pretend the moment of clarity never happened, to fog up the clear glass through which you finally saw them. This is where many people falter. We want to be fair. We want to believe in second chances and the possibility of change. We don't want to be the person who holds grudges or makes mountains out of molehills. But emotional distance isn't cold, it's wise. The Stoic philosophers understood that our feelings often cloud our judgment. When someone has shown you their true character, believing their sudden change of behavior over their consistent pattern of actions isn't wisdom, it's wishful thinking. Seneca wrote, "The willing, destiny guides them. The unwilling, destiny drags them." When you allow someone back into your space simply because they're pretending the harm never happened, you're allowing yourself to be dragged back into a cycle that you've already identified as harmful. Watch their actions, not just their words. A person who truly regrets their behavior doesn't pretend it never occurred. They acknowledge it, they take responsibility for it, and they demonstrate through consistent actions over time that they've changed. Stay courteous if you must interact with them, but stay guarded. Politeness doesn't require emotional availability. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And peace doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. Tactic 3. They undermine you behind closed doors. When direct confrontation fails and fake friendship doesn't work, some manipulators turn to subtler, more devastating warfare, character assassination. This tactic is particularly cruel because you often don't see it coming. You start noticing shifts in how others treat you, conversations that feel slightly off, friends who seem more distant, colleagues who suddenly question your judgment. You feel the impact of something, but you can't quite put your finger on the source. Behind closed doors, the manipulator is hard at work. They're not obviously bad-mouthing you. That would be too transparent. Instead, they're planting seeds of doubt with surgical precision. I'm worried about them. They seemed really unstable the last time we talked. They've been going through a lot lately. I don't think they're seeing things clearly. I tried to help them, but they just lashed out at me. I think they might need professional help. Notice the technique here. They position themselves as the concerned friend while casting you as the unstable one. They're not technically lying. You did confront them. You might be going through a difficult time. You probably were upset when you called out their behavior. But they're reframing these natural responses to manipulation as evidence of your mental instability. The conflict you feel is real and painful. You're being misunderstood by people who don't have the full context. You want to defend yourself, to set the record straight, to make sure everyone knows what really happened. The urge to chase down every whisper, to correct every misconception, can become overwhelming. But here's the Stoic insight that will save your sanity. You can't control rumors, but you control your consistency. Seneca understood this deeply when he wrote, The man who does not know to which port he is steering must have no favorable wind. When you're constantly reacting to what others might be thinking or saying about you, you're not steering your own ship. You're being tossed around by every rumor and whisper. True strength rises above insults. Character proves itself over time, not through frantic explanations or defensive arguments. The people who matter will see through the manipulation eventually. The people who don't see through it? They probably weren't as close to you as you thought, and their opinions matter less than you feared. Live so consistently, so authentically, so clearly that anyone spreading lies about you looks foolish in comparison. Don't chase the narrative. Create such a strong reality that fiction can't compete. Your reputation isn't built on what people say about you in rooms you're not in. It's built on how you show up, day after day, in the rooms where you are. Tactic 4. They pretend to change. When charm fails and guilt doesn't work, when friendship overtures are ignored and character assassination doesn't stick, the manipulator often pulls out their most sophisticated weapon, the grand transformation. Suddenly they're a new person. They've had an epiphany. They've been to therapy. They've found religion. They've read a book that changed their life. They reach out with what seems like genuine remorse, acknowledging their past behavior and promising they've changed. I know I hurt you, and I've been doing a lot of work on myself. I realize now how toxic I was being. I'm not that person anymore. I understand if you don't trust me, but I hope you'll give me a chance to show you I've changed. This is perhaps the most emotionally challenging tactic to navigate because it appeals to our deepest human desires, the desire to believe in redemption, to hope for healing, to trust in the possibility of genuine transformation. The conflict here is intense and personal. Part of you wants to believe them, maybe even needs to believe them, especially if this person was important to you, if you shared history, if you once loved them. The idea that they might have truly changed, that the relationship might be salvageable, that you might not have to carry the weight of this loss forever. It's intoxicating. But hope can cloud clarity, and the Stoic response here requires uncomfortable honesty. Real change doesn't arrive with an announcement. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." True transformation is like that rocky headland, steady, consistent, proven by time and circumstance, not declared in a moment of crisis. Watch for patterns, not performances. Anyone can deliver a convincing monologue about their growth. Anyone can acknowledge their past mistakes when confronted. Anyone can promise to do better when faced with consequences. But genuine change is quiet, it's consistent. It doesn't need to be announced because it's evident in every small action, every subtle shift in how someone treats others, every moment when they choose differently than they used to choose. The person who has truly changed doesn't just tell you they're different. They show you through months and years of different behavior, even when you're not watching, even when there's no immediate reward for their growth. Here's the crucial distinction. Forgiveness releases your resentment, but it doesn't require their re-entry into your life. You can forgive someone their past behavior without giving them access to your future peace. You can hope for their transformation without making yourself available to witness it firsthand. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection, and protecting yourself from someone who has hurt you before isn't pessimism, it's wisdom. Tactic 5. They push your boundaries subtly. When the grand gestures fail, when the dramatic transformations don't convince you, the manipulator often shifts to their most patient strategy, subtle boundary testing. This doesn't look like the obvious violations you might expect. Instead, it's the gentle probe, the seemingly innocent reach, the harmless attempt to re-establish connection, a text that says nothing but "thinking of you," a comment on a mutual friend's post that they know you'll see, a small favor requested through a third party, a birthday card that arrives with no return address but handwriting you recognize. Each of these seems so small, so harmless, that rejecting them feels cruel. They're counting on your discomfort with appearing harsh or unreasonable. They know that most people feel awkward maintaining firm boundaries when the violations seem so minor. The emotional manipulation here is sophisticated. It exploits your kindness. Every time you don't respond to the text, every time you ignore the comment, every time you refuse the small favor, you feel a little bit like the bad guy. It seems easier to just reply, to acknowledge, to engage, just this once. But this is exactly the opening they're looking for, because once you respond to one harmless contact, you've established that your boundaries are negotiable. Once you've shown that persistence pays off, they know exactly how much pressure to apply to get what they want. The conflict you feel is real. Maintaining boundaries, especially with someone who once mattered to you, can feel cold and unforgiving. You don't want to be the person who can't let go, who holds grudges, who's so rigid that you can't show basic human courtesy. But here's the Stoic insight that will save you from endless manipulation. Boundaries are lived, not argued. Epictetus taught that we always have a choice in how we respond to what happens to us. But choosing to enforce a boundary isn't cruel, it's clarity. When you've identified that someone's presence in your life is harmful, consistently allowing small violations of that decision isn't kindness, it's self-sabotage. Silence is sometimes the strongest wall. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. You don't have to justify your boundaries or argue their validity. You simply maintain them, quietly and consistently, because your mental and emotional well-being matters more than appearing agreeable to someone who has already shown you they don't respect your limits. Every text that goes unanswered, every attempt at contact that receives no response, is a clear message. This boundary is real, this decision is final, this relationship is over. The message is delivered not through anger or cruelty, but through the simple, powerful act of protecting what matters to you. Tactic 6. They isolate or discredit you to others. When all else fails, when every direct attempt to re-engage you has been unsuccessful, some manipulators resort to the nuclear option, a systematic campaign to discredit you within your shared social circles. This isn't the subtle character assassination of Tactic 3. This is open warfare, designed not just to damage your reputation, but to isolate you from your support network entirely. They position themselves as the victim of your unreasonable behavior, gathering allies and building a narrative where you're the aggressor and they're the wounded party, just trying to move on with their life. The stories they tell are carefully crafted. They don't outright lie, that would be too risky. Instead, they curate facts, emphasize your worst moments, and reframe the entire relationship to cast themselves in the most sympathetic light possible. I don't know what happened to them. They just completely cut me off over nothing. I tried to apologize, but they won't even talk to me. I think they're having some kind of breakdown. I'm worried about them, but they've turned all our mutual friends against me. I don't know what lies they've been telling. The emotional impact of this tactic can be devastating. You watch relationships you valued become strained or severed entirely. People you trusted start treating you differently, looking at you with suspicion or pity. You feel misunderstood, alone, abandoned by people who were supposed to know you better. The urge to fight back is overwhelming. You want to tell your side of the story, to set the record straight, to make sure everyone knows what really happened. You start calculating who to talk to first, planning your counter-narrative, strategizing how to win back the people who've been turned against you. But this is exactly the trap they've set. They want you to look desperate, defensive, obsessed with drama. They want you to chase rumors and correct misconceptions and exhaust yourself trying to manage everyone's opinion of you. Because the more frantically you try to control the narrative, the more unstable you appear. The Stoic response here requires tremendous faith in time and truth. Don't chase rumors. Live so clearly that time exposes lies. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." When you're constantly monitoring who believes what about you, constantly strategizing your reputation management, constantly defending yourself against whispers and allegations, you're giving your power away to people who don't deserve it. You don't manage their stories. You manage your integrity. The people who truly know you, who've seen your character consistently over time, won't be easily swayed by someone else's version of events. The people who are easily swayed, they either don't know you well enough for their opinion to matter, or they're not the kind of friends you want to keep anyway. Live so authentically, so consistently, so clearly, that anyone spreading lies about you eventually looks foolish. Respond to attack with steadiness, to slander with silence, to manipulation with unwavering integrity. Your reputation isn't built on winning arguments or managing perceptions. It's built on the accumulated weight of your actions, the consistency of your character, the way you treat people when no one is watching. Time has a way of revealing truth. People have a way of showing their real motivations eventually, and you have a way of proving your worth through how you conduct yourself, not through how well you defend yourself. The Stoic Shield, your final defense. Here's what the manipulator doesn't understand, what they can't comprehend because it's foreign to their entire way of being. You don't have to play their games. Every tactic they deploy, every strategy they employ, every manipulation they attempt is designed to pull you into their reality, to make you dance to their tune, to force you to respond on their terms. They need you to engage because their power comes from your reaction. But you have something they can never touch, the ability to choose your response. When they flip the narrative, you choose not to defend what needs no defense. When they pretend nothing happened, you choose to remember clearly. When they undermine you to others, you choose to live with such integrity that lies can't stick. When they pretend to change, you choose to watch actions over time rather than believe words in the moment. When they push your boundaries, you choose silence over explanation. When they try to isolate you, you choose authenticity over reputation management. This isn't about being cold or unforgiving. This isn't about holding grudges or being unable to let go. This is about clarity. This is about recognizing that your peace, your mental health, your emotional well-being are not negotiable. They're not up for debate. They're not something you have to argue for or justify to anyone. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The manipulator's greatest weakness is their need for your participation in their drama. When you refuse to participate, when you choose peace over proving points, when you choose your own clarity over their confusion, you render all their tactics powerless. Clarity is rebellion in a world that profits from your confusion. Peace is your shield against those who would steal it. Integrity is your answer to every question they try to make you doubt about yourself. You don't fight the games. They collapse when you stand firm. In a world of masks, clarity is rebellion. Your unshakable center, your unwillingness to be pulled into chaos, your commitment to living by your own values rather than reacting to their manipulations, this is your power. If you've walked through this fire, if you've recognized these tactics in your own life, you're not alone. Sharing your story helps others recognize the patterns, and if this helped you see more clearly, share it with someone else who might be walking through their own version of this struggle. Stay sharp, stay strong, stay unshakable.